It's the documentary that aired on Monday night on BBC One, fronted is probably the best word to use, by cricketer Andrew Freddie Flintoff about his struggles with bulimia. And Gary, what was the reason you wanted to talk about this, and do you want just to set it up a little bit as well?
Well, the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because I work in one of the teams that was featured in the show. I was in the building when they were filming the stuff. So I work for the eating disorders team at the Maudsley Hospital, where Dr. Amara Nassim, who he met firstly with someone with bulimia,
Yeah.
and then towards the end of the episode met one on one with. And we've been talking about this show for some time because obviously we know, and I was actually there the day it was being filmed. I joined that team the week after, and funnily enough, what made me sort of excited the most was when I saw him in the office when he was talking to the bulimic patient and Amara. Was I had my interview in that office when I was working, and I used that office every Friday when the current occupant wasn't in as my office on a Friday. So it was kind of weird to say, "Oh, that's my desk." That was kind of weird. Um, but of course I haven't been there for 6 months, so that was also why it was special because, well,
Oh.
yes, I work there, but not anymore. Freddie denies that he really has an eating disorder, which I think is the key thing that comes out of this episode. He is in denial that he has a problem. I think he recognizes that he has a condition, but I think he's very much in denial. And what this show really was out there to show was that his experience is not limited to just him. He is obviously in the public eye and has been, pretty much since his teenage years when he first came on the scene as a cricketer. And his weight and his appearance was a big source of newspaper chatter throughout his time playing cricket. And this is kind of like his first opportunity where he has spoken about his struggles. So that's part of the episode. And then the other part is that he, say, visits the Maudsley Hospital and talks to a patient who has similar experiences to him. He visits a mother and who lost her son to bulimia, and also a more local service. I think it was in Sheffield, to where he lives up in the north, and someone who he met that was still in treatment a year after being diagnosed, and I think that hit him about how long this process will take. So for me, there was that sort of curiosity of, I'm involved in this area of work. I'm not a clinician myself. I'm their business manager. I'm not diagnosing. My knowledge of eating disorders is very little compared to them. But even I think I could see that he had a problem, and I think a lot of people were surprised about at the end. He says, "Well, I don't throw up anymore. I do all this exercise." And my main thing was, well, what happens if you break your leg, or you can't get up every day and exercise on an empty stomach for 4 hours or whatever, or 2 hours or whatever, And he was doing a lot of justifying. Throughout the program, they brought up a lot of statistics about how bulimia and eating disorders are not just about the sort of popular view of young women, but actually a lot of men. I think it was 6 out of every 10 cases are men. And I think the show did a great job in showing that from the male perspective. But the part of me came away thinking he's just going to keep on struggling and keeping it to himself, which was quite sad. What did you think?
It wasn't overproduced like some of these documentaries are. There was a lack of music, emotional music. I think
Yeah,
Freddie
no
was
Coldplay. Yeah.
was an interesting frontman of this documentary, and it was very much alpha males and their relationship with, as you say, like eating disorders. It being seen as a
Mm,
very female orientated thing and something that men shouldn't go through, and him talking about his issues with his weight and his image as the fat cricketer, the jokes and the thing, he brought up pictures of him that he didn't like by googling fat Flintoff. And it's very interesting seeing behind these sportsmen this confidence that you feel like someone like Freddie Flintoff has.
mm.
You see him on Top Gear, you see him on panel shows, and he comes across as very affable, very switched on. But then there's this other side beneath the surface, which must be very brave for him to talk about.
Mm.
I don't think a lot of people, bar some of his teammates and his wife, actually know what has been going on with him and how he feels about his weight. And it was an intro. I mean, I can't say that it was one of the best documentaries I've seen. You know, it was very basically made, but it was emotional in parts, as you say, when he met the woman who lost her son to bulimia. That was very emotional, and his own, I suppose, voyage of self-discovery and learning what bulimia was. You know, all he knew was that he was sticking his hands down his throat and retching. He didn't know the more nuanced areas of what the disease was, and actually this over exercising was part of it. You know, this, you know, you saw him on the treadmill in his garage at home just sweating, and that he's saying, like, I can't not exercise before I have anything to eat in the morning. You know, this psychological process. So it was I think the certainly the bits with Freddie himself and him coming to terms with it and his story was more interesting than the bits with the talking heads, the bits where he went to meet other people with bulimia, which you do need for a documentary like this. But I think when it was him on his own talking, they were the more powerful moments for me.
What was interesting as well was that, you know, as someone who is, you know, a little large on the large side, seeing him look at a picture of himself and thinking he looks fat, and I'm going like, good grief, mate. He was fat for a cricketer, but not fat for a person. But yeah, so but you know, and I've experienced a fair bit of strange comments on the, you know, I will occasionally get someone who feels like it's hilarious to shout fatty out in the street, but I've never wanted to or stuck my fingers down my throat because of it. So I can't relate to that side of it, but I can relate to the side of it where you get catcalled or, you know, because of your
you
appearance.
think people are talking about it, and I think it is a very common, even if you're not. I mean, I wouldn't say I was overweight, but you know, I'm not slim. You know, I don't. You know, I can feel my weight being put on, and I think it is a universal thing. But it's not something that you hear, you know, men say in the media. It's presented as a female thing about worrying about your weight, worrying that you're too fat.
Yeah, body image is seen
Body
as a female.
image, yeah. Whereas men do go through it as well, and it needs people like Freddie Flintoff to talk about that side of it and how, you know, they feel. You know, I suppose the big thing people use is the dad bod now, isn't it? That's the new phrase for.
And I suppose in lockdown there has been a number of conversations about, you know, because people have put weight on or had strange experiences with food because of loneliness and you know, and the whole feeling of, you know, how that makes you feel. You know, there have been, you know, and also there's been that push of home exercise, and you know, particularly when the government was talking about making sure you go out for your daily walks and stuff like that. So it is quite topical as well as you know, as well as hard hitting.
And that is on the iPlayer. Freddie
Yeah.
Flintoff living with bulimia.